Okay, today we begin not with a concept, but with a quiet image. Imagine a small hut tucked into a forest at sunrise. The mist is low, the world still half asleep. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." The Upanishads echo this. When the senses are stilled, the mind is at rest, and the intellect wavers not, then begins the highest path. But they, too, saw that the mind, left unchecked, becomes its own prison. Like the moon hidden by clouds, it's always there. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free," and bravery often means being still when the world demands noise. The Upanishads say, "He who has known that which is without sound, without form, without decay, he is freed from fear." That's not just breath, that's the space between thoughts. That space is where both traditions begin. The Gita, drawing from the Upanishads, teaches, "You have the right to work, but never to the fruits of work." But if the Stoics could practice virtue in the courts of emperors, and the rishis of the Upanishads could realize truth in the forests of ancient India, then maybe we, too, can find moments of stillness in our lives, not by escaping life, but by stepping more fully into it with clarity, calm, and courage. Not far away, just beneath the next breath. Stoicism mirrors this. We act with excellence, but let go of results. Stillness gives us room to act without ego. It gives space between stimulus and response where wisdom lives. Both traditions agree. We suffer not because of what happens, but because of how we meet it. Its great minds Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius each faced suffering, power, and uncertainty. Yet they returned again and again to discipline, inner peace, and responsibility. Stoicism is not about feeling less, it's about being overwhelmed less often, and choosing wisely even when you feel deeply. What could silence teach you about yourself, your patterns, your truth? And if you gave up needing to win every argument, every conversation, every moment, what freedom might appear in its place? It is not a system of indifference, but of presence. And the first step to meeting it well, to be quiet enough to hear it. These are not religious commandments. They are practices of the soul, and they do not ask for perfection, only awareness. The same goes for the Upanishads. They do not promise comfort, they offer clarity. That is enough. The Stoics remind us to distinguish between what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, and what is not, the weather, the past, the opinions of others. We fill every space with sound, with stimulation. But stillness is not a void, it is an invitation. The Stoics practiced morning reflection and nightly journaling, not to plan or to perform but to listen. The Upanishads advise meditation not to escape, but to re-enter the world with insight. When you pause, the world becomes less overwhelming. You don't become smaller, you simply become clearer. This awareness alone is liberating. Epictetus wrote, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The Upanishads teach something similar. When you stop identifying with what comes and goes, you begin to recognize what never left. They urged practitioners to see through the noise of the ego, through the attachments to name and form, to something more enduring. The self, the Atman, that which watches without clinging, the one that neither boasts nor fears. Just like Logos, it is always present, we only forget to listen. The journey toward wisdom does not require a new app or a new philosophy, but perhaps a quieter moment with the ones we already have. Inside, a single flame flickers beside a bowl of warm tea. The Stoics were not born into monasteries. They were statesmen, slaves, generals. Zeno began teaching in the public square. Epictetus was once a slave. Seneca navigated imperial politics. Marcus Aurelius governed a collapsing empire. Yet in all the chaos, they turned inward not to withdraw, but to stand firm. Stillness, for them, was discipline, strength, freedom. No one speaks. There's no rush, just a figure sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, not escaping the world, but returning to it in silence. Now, contrast that with your own morning, the phone buzzing, the mind racing, the world demanding your attention. What if stillness wasn't a pause from life but the center of it? Here on Stoic Dharma, we explore ancient wisdom from the Upanishads and Stoic philosophy to distant traditions that quietly meet in the same sacred stillness. Across time and culture, silence has always held sacred weight. In the Upanishads, silence is more than the absence of sound. It is the presence of something deeper, a doorway to the self. The sages believed that in silence, the eternal self can be known. In Stoicism, silence is not escape but mastery. It's what happens when we stop reacting and begin responding from clarity. It is through quiet observation, not anxious control, that we begin to live in harmony with the logos, the rational order of the universe. Wisdom in both traditions begins where noise ends. This is not the silence of boredom or repression. It is the kind of silence where awareness awakens. These teachings are not abstract ideas, they are responses to very human conditions. The Upanishads arose from a different world, ancient forests, oral chants, seekers living in simplicity. In both systems, wisdom is not something you acquire, it's something you uncover. To live in silence, to observe instead of react, is not a sign of weakness. It's the birth of clarity. Have you noticed how modern life almost fears silence? Even waiting in line, we reach for our phones. Let's take a breath now, right here. Inhale through your nose, gently, hold it for a moment, exhale slowly. So, what is Stoicism? At its core, founded by Zeno around 300 BCE in Athens, it taught that the good life is one aligned with nature and reason. Stoicism teaches three main disciplines: the discipline of perception, seeing things as they are, the discipline of action, doing what is right, and the discipline of will, accepting what we cannot change. Perhaps the reason these philosophies still resonate is because our world still trembles under the same fears: loss, failure, change, mortality. So I leave you, for now, with a few questions. What would happen if you stopped reacting and simply observed? Let this be enough. Wisdom waits in silence. In the forests of ancient India, sometime around 800 BCE, sages began to leave the cities. They wandered into the wilderness not to abandon life, but to understand it. These seekers composed verses we now call the Upanishads, texts not meant to be taught in crowded temples, but whispered from teacher to student in the hush of dawn. They were not interested in gods with names or rituals with form. They asked instead, "Who am I beneath all this? What remains when the world is silent?" Stoicism remains rooted in reason and virtue as practical tools for daily life. But both understand that we suffer most when we identify with what is fleeting, and both offer the same prescription: act with intention, but let go of outcome. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, your right is to the action alone, never to its fruits. The Stoics often use the image of nature, a dog tied to a cart, dragged unwillingly or walking peacefully with it, for presence without performance. In modern language, it is what we call mindfulness, but not a trend, a way of being. The Stoics called it ataraxia, a state of untroubled mind. The sages called it turiya, the fourth state, beyond waking, dreaming, and sleep. In both, the noise stops, the self remains. The Upanishads speak of rivers flowing into the sea, losing name and form, becoming vast and still. We live in a world of speed, not stillness. We praise productivity, not presence. And yet something in us aches for this silence. When you turn off your phone, when you walk under trees, when you breathe and remember that you are not your calendar, or your profile, or your thoughts. You are the one watching those thoughts. You are the silence behind the voice. That is where both the Stoics and the Upanishads want to meet you, not in theory, but in your breath. In your day, both tell us you can fight what is, or you can flow with it. One brings suffering, the other, peace. Epictetus echoes, "Seek not that events should happen as you will, but will events to happen as they do." How can we bring stillness into our work, our relationships, our sense of self? But within you, there is a space that has never moved. How can we practice this calm, not once a year in retreat, but every single day? Centuries later, far from the forests of India, Athens was beginning to unravel, and we ignore what is, our thoughts, our reactions, our inner state. Both traditions call us to reclaim this inner domain. You do not have to leave your home or change your name, but you can listen. You can listen to the quiet that was always there. That, perhaps, has waited years for you to hear it again. In the Upanishads, the mind is a chariot. The senses are the horses, the intellect is the reins. No man is free, he said, who is not master of himself. To him, suffering was not in events, but in our resistance to them. When we stop resisting, we find peace not by liking what happens, but by aligning ourselves with it. The Upanishads, too, say the same. He who sees all beings in the self, and the self in all beings, feels no fear. When you are no longer separate, nothing can truly harm you. Only the self, the silent witness, can guide the whole with peace. In Stoicism, discipline is the same charioteer. Without it, emotion and impulse pull us toward ruin. With it, we move in harmony with Logos. The old myths no longer explain the rising chaos of daily life. Temples still stood, but faith was fading. They are notes to remember how to be calm amidst the madness of empire. In one passage, he writes, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and around it the seething waters are laid to rest. The Stoic is not untouched by life, but unmoved in his principles. The storm may rage, but within there is stillness." In the Upanishads, this is Dharma, the order of things, but also your role within it, your duty, your natural rhythm. That thou art, they say you are the universe, awake within itself. The Stoics echo this: you are not above nature, but part of it. A citizen of the cosmos, freedom lies in understanding your place and choosing your response with wisdom. The sages urge us inward. Neti not this, not that. Marcus Aurelius puts it simply, dig within. There lies the wellspring of good. In Stoicism, it is Logos, the rational principle, that moves through everything. Logos is not just logic, but life's deep intelligence. Dharma and Logos do not contradict. They reflect the same truth through different lenses. That harmony comes not from control, but from alignment with the nature of things. Around 300 BCE, a man named Zeno began teaching under a shaded colonnade called the Stoic. He wasn't a priest or nobleman. He had survived shipwreck, lost his wealth, and discovered something deeper. That quiet discovery became Stoicism, a path not for escaping hardship, but for walking through it with calm clarity and a sense of quiet, inner strength. What connects the forest sage and the Stoic teacher is a shared question: how can we live rightly in a world beyond our control? The Upanishads teach that our task is not to dominate the world, but to know the self-Atman, which, when truly seen, is not separate from Brahman, the source of all. This is not to say the paths are identical. The Upanishads seek ultimate union, Atman melting into Brahman. So much of our modern suffering comes from this confusion. We try to control what is not ours: other people, circumstances, the weather, history. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most well-known Stoic, wrote his meditations not for others, but for himself. Epictetus, born a slave, crippled in youth, taught that our true power lies in what we choose to believe and do. Even in their metaphors, the two philosophies meet. And this peace is not laziness or resignation, it is clarity. A clarity that allows for action without anxiety. So, what do we do with this wisdom? Now, you do not have to choose one path. In our next part, we'll move into how to live this wisdom, not just admire it. The forest and the city both hold the same truth: the world will not stop spinning. Let's learn how to return to it, not by force, but by practice. Stillness is not a mood, it is a practice. It is not a withdrawal from the world, but a different way of entering it, awake, grounded, and present. Marcus Aurelius would ask himself, today, I will meet people who are selfish, envious, and cruel, But he would not meet them with resentment. He would meet them with understanding, because he remembered that they, too, are part of the same whole. This is the practice, to greet the day with readiness, not to control what happens, but to prepare your soul to respond with calm. In both Stoicism and the Upanishads, the highest truth is not something you understand once and for all. The Stoics remind us that no act is beneath dignity. Marcus Aurelius would reflect before sleep. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? Can I improve tomorrow? No self-punishment, no shame, just clear seeing. This is how a soul grows, not through perfect days, but through honest ones. In the Indian tradition, the evening chant is a return to truth. You remind yourself again, you are not this failure, nor that success. Let this be your compass. If your next action arises from fear, pause. If it stirs from ego, breathe. This is how the Stoic walks through fire and remains whole. This is how the forest sage hears the silence behind the noise. Not because they are different from you, or more disciplined, or more spiritual, but because they remembered something simple, something essential. That peace was never far away. It was never locked in books or hidden in rituals. It was always right here, quietly waiting to be noticed, like a friend who never left. The world pushes us to act quickly, to respond, to solve, but wisdom waits. True direction does not come from urgency. It comes from awareness. You are not what you're reacting to. You are the space in which reaction arises. That quiet, gentle space, that's where stillness begins. You are the one who watches. You are the light behind the story. If done with presence, every task becomes sacred. Do what is before you with exactness, says Epictetus, as if it were the last thing you will ever do. The Upanishads say something similar in fewer words. All work is worship, if done without attachment. But look again, stillness is not about turning away. It is about seeing clearly before you turn toward. A Stoic remains in the world, fully engaged. A sage lives in society, not apart from it. But both act from a center that is not shaken by chaos. That center is not special. It is not rare. It is what you are when you stop pretending to be anything else. Stillness, then, is not the absence of doing. It is the fullness of doing with no grasping. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am the witness. This is not a denial of life. Before the distractions take hold, you can plant something steady. But stillness is not another project. It's not something to get good at. The paradox is this: stillness arrives the moment you stop trying to make it happen. It is always here, beneath the layers. The Stoics knew this. If you are disturbed, wrote Epictetus, it is not events that trouble you, but your judgment of them. Remove the judgment, and peace returns. The sages of India would nod gently. Truth does not come through force. It is unveiled by quiet. In Stoic terms, it is prasosh, the practice of constant attention. Why sitting with a tree can teach you more than scrolling through 1,000 ideas. Wisdom, in both traditions, is not measured by what you know but by how present you are with what is. A calm presence is not a lack of opinion. It is the quiet confidence that opinion is not everything, that some truths cannot be said. They must be felt, lived, and returned to again and again. You notice when your mind wanders. You observe your judgments. You catch the rising irritation and ask, is this within my power? That simple question returns you to your place. In the Upanishads, it is the inner flame that never flickers. Even in movement, it remains still. The sages call it the self that walks while sitting, speaks while silent, acts while resting. This is not a metaphor. It is a way of being. A Stoic may reflect on virtue. An Upanishadic practitioner may chant a sacred sound dome. In both cases, it is a tuning of the instrument before the music of the day begins. You don't control the song that plays, but you can choose how well your string is tuned. It is a reminder. Your true nature is not disturbed by the noise of the world. Like the sky untouched by clouds, or the ocean beneath the waves, your stillness remains. You return to that inner space not to avoid action, but to act from clarity. It is something you return to, again and again, through daily acts of attention. Just as you must return to your breath in meditation, or return to reason in anger, you must return to stillness not as a place to escape, but as a way to begin again. Each morning offers this chance. In the Stoic tradition, the day begins not with checking messages, but with a kind of inner briefing. The Upanishadic sages offer a similar ritual. Before the world wakes, before the first word is spoken, there is the silent recitation of truth. This is why both traditions emphasize early morning, not as superstition, but because the mind is softer then, more open, and throughout the day, the return continues. Lunch can be part of the practice. So can walking. So can washing dishes. And when the day is done, the return happens again. Let's pause here, because all of this can sound like discipline, like effort, like something to achieve. This is why walking in silence can be more powerful than reading another book. The modern world will not reward this. It will call it laziness, or naivety, or even selfishness. So today, as you listen or reflect, ask not, "What should I do next?" Ask instead, "From where am I doing it?" And if your next step arises from stillness, from that deep, quiet knowing, then proceed. Walk slowly, speak with care, move with presence. When you sit quietly, not distracted, not reaching what rises in you. Do you hear silence, or something within it? For many, silence feels empty, even uncomfortable. But if you stay long enough, the quiet begins to reveal things. Not just the sounds of birds or breath, but the echo of something older, something true. It asks nothing of you, it simply is. And if you listen, you may begin to ask yourself, am I living from this space, or only reacting to everything that pulls me away? Not the power to dominate, but the power to endure, to see clearly, to love without attachment. That's what Stoic endurance teaches, not numbness, but depth. You are not what you do. You are not what others expect. Let go, they say, not in apathy, but in wisdom. You don't need to wear special clothes, burn incense, or quote ancient texts. All that's asked is this: sit still for a while. Not to change yourself, but to see yourself. Not to escape life, but to meet it more fully. In the quiet, the masks fall away. And what's left is someone real, someone whole. But what if your deepest value has nothing to do with action? What if you are enough, even in stillness? Marcus Aurelius reminded us that serenity is a fortress stronger than anything outside us. The Upanishads reminded us that when the mind rests, wisdom appears on its own. You are not far from this peace. It is right here. Let go of needing life to be a certain way. Try doing nothing, not out of defeat, but out of trust. Sit, breathe, feel the moment as it is. Maybe all you need is to stop, to listen, and to return. Not to a different version of yourself, but to the one you forgot. The one who doesn't need to prove anything, the one who is already whole. And listen not with your ears, but with your being. In the silence, you are not empty. You are full, full of insight, full of strength, full of the same presence that has guided sages and philosophers alike. You can be both. You can reason clearly and feel deeply. You can serve the world and stay inwardly free. Just sit. Let the silence hold you. Let your breath guide you. Let the world be what it is, without needing it to change. And in that stillness, you may hear something ancient, something true. A wisdom that has no name, but every heart has touched. The Stoics and the Upanishads never asked us to flee the world, they asked us to return to ourselves. So, we could live in it rightly. What matters is whether you have made space to hear what lies beneath the noise. You can practice this once, or every day. You can turn away from it, or return whenever you like. There is no pressure, no punishment, just a quiet invitation to remember what you already are. So, we could be calm in chaos, still in movement, quiet, even as we speak. Let go of needing people to understand you. Let go of needing every outcome to match your plan. What's left is not nothingness, but freedom. Freedom to act from your highest self. Freedom to respond with love, not fear. That is the fruit of silence. You are what remains when everything else is stripped away. And strangely, from that emptiness, something rich begins to grow. Insight, peace, a quiet courage. These aren't things we earn, they're things we uncover. The strength to stay calm when things fall apart. And the Upanishads add this: you are not just a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop. You carry something infinite inside you. Silence helps you remember. So much of life is built on reaction. We hear a demand and we respond. You can hear it washing dishes, walking home, sitting on the floor. It isn't about where you are, it's about how present you are. The Stoics sat in courts and battlefields. The sages meditated under trees. But both were pointing to the same thing, that the world outside is only part of the story. The real journey is inward, and it begins in stillness. A notification, a deadline, a voice telling us who to be. Not your possessions, not your roles, not even your hopes. What remains is awareness, the bare sense of I am, before names, before identities. In the Upanishads, this is Atman, the undivided self. For the Stoics, it's logos, the rational soul aligned with nature. Neither is about escaping life. Both call us back to what is essential, to live in truth, to act from the quiet center, not the chaotic edge. But silence doesn't demand, it invites. In that stillness, when your thoughts slow and your body softens, a different kind of clarity appears. One that's not forced, one that doesn't shout. And that's when the real questions arise, not from panic, not from ego, but from something deeper. Something you forgot, but never truly lost. What remains when everything is taken? There is a strange kind of power in stillness. You don't need to retreat to the mountains to hear this. In that stillness, something happens. The mind begins to unclench, the body relaxes, and the heart so long pressed under the weight of becoming begins to soften. Both the Stoics and the sages remind us, the more we chase control, the more we suffer. This path isn't about belief, it's about experience. You don't need to accept any doctrine. You don't have to choose between being a philosopher or a mystic. And so, if one day you feel tired not just physically, but spiritually, try this. Don't fix, don't plan, don't analyze. It doesn't matter whether you believe in Atman or Logos, or in nothing at all. We live in a time where value is often measured by output, how much you do, how fast, how visibly. So the next time you feel lost or overwhelmed, don't rush to solve it. Maybe you are not broken, maybe you are just busy. Thank you for walking this journey with us. See you in the next meditation.